What if I told you that India, a land steeped in ancient spirituality and home to one of the oldest civilizations on Earth, holds a secret role in God's divine plan? This role, hidden in plain sight for thousands of years, connects India not only to the Bible, but also to the ultimate fulfillment of prophecy. Although India is rarely mentioned directly in the Bible, its rich spiritual tapestry and history have far-reaching implications in the grand narrative of Christianity and end-times prophecy. To understand this connection, we need to explore India's potential ties to biblical history, the spread of Christianity, and its place in the unfolding of God's plan. By examining the people, culture, and religious traditions of India, we may find that this nation has a profound and surprising role in the broader biblical story. India's connection to the Bible. India may not be explicitly named in the Bible, but many scholars believe its roots extend deep into the ancient scriptures. The Bible often speaks in broad geographical terms, referencing regions and peoples whose identities encompass vast areas, including what we now know as India. For instance, in the Table of Nations found in Genesis 10, the Bible traces the lineage of Noah's sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, who repopulated the earth after the flood. Japheth is often considered the ancestor of many Gentile nations, including those that spread into Europe and Asia. Some biblical scholars suggest that Japheth's descendants, through his son Javan, could be linked to the Indo-European peoples, which includes those who later inhabited the Indian subcontinent. This early connection places India within the broader biblical narrative, as part of the dispersion of nations after the flood. India's advanced civilization, known for its spirituality, culture, and trade, could have interacted with the ancient biblical world. For example, 1 Kings 10:22 describes King Solomon's wealth and mentions trade routes that brought him gold, silver, ivory, apes, and peacocks. Some historians speculate that these goods may have originated from India, which was known for its spices, gems, and exotic wildlife, indicating that trade between Israel and India may have existed in ancient times. Apostle Thomas and the spread of Christianity in India. One of the most compelling links between India and the Bible comes from the story of the Apostle Thomas, one of Jesus' 12 disciples. Famously known for doubting Jesus' resurrection until he could see and touch Christ's wounds, Thomas embarked on a missionary journey that took him as far as the Indian subcontinent. According to Christian tradition, Thomas arrived in Kerala, southern India, around 52 AD. He is credited with establishing some of the earliest Christian communities in India, including the Mar Thoma Christians, who claim direct descent from his missionary work. This means that India was among the first regions outside of the Roman Empire to receive the message of Christ. Long before Christianity took root in many parts of Europe, Thomas was spreading the gospel in a land rich with ancient spiritual traditions such as Hinduism, Jainism, and Buddhism. His journey fulfilled a key part of Jesus' Great Commission, where the risen Christ instructed his disciples to go and make disciples of all nations. At the time, India was considered one of the farthest known regions of the world, and by reaching its shores, Thomas symbolically fulfilled the command to spread the gospel to the ends of the earth. The lost years of Jesus in India. Some traditions go even further, suggesting that Jesus himself may have traveled to India during his so-called lost years. The years between his childhood and the beginning of his public ministry that are not recorded in the New Testament. This idea is not widely accepted in mainstream Christian doctrine, but it persists in various apocryphal texts in Eastern traditions. According to these sources, Jesus may have traveled to India, where he studied under spiritual masters and learned ancient wisdom before returning to Israel to begin his ministry. While this narrative is speculative and not supported by canonical scripture, it raises intriguing questions about the cross-cultural exchanges between the East and the West. India, land known for its profound spiritual and philosophical traditions, could have played a role in shaping the understanding of divine teachings. Whether or not Jesus physically visited India, his message of love, redemption, and spiritual transformation resonated deeply with Indian spirituality, as evidenced by the early Christian communities that flourished there. India's spiritual landscape and biblical prophecy. India's rich spiritual diversity has made it a battleground of faith for millennia. Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Islam, Sikhism, and Christianity all coexist in this vast land, each contributing to the nation's complex religious identity. Despite being home to many faiths, Christianity has faced significant resistance throughout its history in India. Yet, in the face of opposition, the Christian faith has survived and even thrived in certain regions. The Mar Thoma Christians of Kerala, who trace their roots to Apostle Thomas, are one example of a community that has preserved its Christian heritage for nearly 2,000 years. Additionally, the northeastern regions of India have seen explosive growth in Christianity in recent decades. Missionary efforts during the colonial period, particularly by the British, led to the spread of Christianity, with missionaries such as William Carey translating the Bible into Indian languages and establishing schools. But India's spiritual significance goes beyond the spread of Christianity. Some theologians and scholars believe that India's diversity positions it as a key player in the ultimate fulfillment of biblical prophecy. In Matthew 4:14, Jesus states, "And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come." India, with its vast population and over 2,000 distinct people groups, represents one of the largest fields for missionary work in the world. The idea that the gospel must reach every nation, tribe, and language before the end times suggests that India will play a critical role in the final harvest of souls. Revelation 7:9 presents a vision of a great multitude from every nation, tribe, people, and language standing before the throne of God. Given India's incredible diversity, it is not difficult to imagine its people represented in this multitude. India's religious landscape, though resistant to widespread conversion, is part of a larger spiritual battle. As the Bible often speaks of nations being judged based on their response to God's truth, India may be at a crossroads. Will it embrace the gospel, or will it continue to resist as it has for centuries? India's role in the end times. While India is not explicitly mentioned in biblical prophecies, its spiritual and cultural significance suggests that it may play a pivotal role in the unfolding of God's divine plan. The Bible tells us that in the end times, nations will either stand with Christ or against him, and India, with its billion-plus population, will undoubtedly be part of this final reckoning. In the book of Revelation, the final judgment sees people from every nation and tongue standing before Christ. India's vast population, spiritual history, and growing global influence make it a key player in this ultimate event. The rise of Christianity in certain regions of India and the ongoing spiritual warfare across the nation indicate that God's plan for India is still unfolding. Could India, the land of many gods, one day turn to the one true God? Could it be a critical player in the final harvest of souls before the return of Christ? India's connection to the Bible, its early encounter with the gospel, and its current spiritual struggles make it a nation to watch closely as we move toward the fulfillment of end-time prophecies. As we examine the role of modern nations in God's ultimate plan, it becomes clear that India is not an exception. The time to engage with India's place in biblical prophecy is now. Stay tuned to Deep Bible Stories for more insights into how ancient prophecies and modern nations are shaping the world today.